touch the metal you're carrying right now. Your keys, your ring, the coin in your pocket. Don't just think about it, hold it. Feel the weight of it in your hand. Because there is one metal that old mystical traditions treated very differently from the rest. Not as jewelry, not as decoration, not as status, as protection. And once you hear the claim attached to that metal, you understand why people tried to bury this kind of teaching for so long. There are fringe readings of early Christian and Gnostic material that say Jesus passed on a form of hidden protection to the few who could carry it. Not everyone, not the crowd. The ones who were meant to stay clear enough to keep moving through a hostile world without being drained dry by it. The claim is extreme. That one specific metal worn on one specific side of the body could make a person harder to detect by forces that feed on fear, shame, rage, and despair. Subscribe and stay close if you want the next transmissions, because ideas like this do not sit comfortably inside official stories, and whether you hear them as spiritual truth, symbolic code, or ancient psychological technology, they hit something real. And before this is over, I'm going to give you the whole sequence clearly. The metal, why the left side matters, why the wrist matters more than most people realize, what the old teaching says these parasitic forces actually are, the 3 forms of interference, the exact activation words, the 7-day window, the warnings, the social fallout, and why the deeper point may be less about superstition than about something people feel every day and still don't know how to name. In fringe interpretations of the Gospel of Judas and related Gnostic material, there is this explosive idea that the war around human beings is not only moral, not only symbolic, and not only psychological. It is energetic. The enemy in that worldview is not just bad people or bad choices. It is a system of predatory influence. The Nag Hammadi texts describe Archons as beings tied to the Demiurge, the false ruler of the material prison, a counterfeit order that traps divine sparks inside dense matter and confusion. In that reading, Archons are not horned devils flying around waiting to jump out of dark corners. They are more like invasive forces, parasites of attention, parasites of emotion, parasites of signal. They do not create real life, they skim off it. They live by reading human weakness and feeding where the field is open. And what they feed on most easily are low, unstable states. Fear, shame, chronic anger, despair, looped grief, identity built around wound. The old language says they feed on frequency. You can modernize the language all you want, but the mechanism lands because you already know the feeling. You walk into a crowded place and feel weirdly drained. You spend time with one person and leave heavier than when you arrived. You wake up exhausted after enough sleep. You start spiraling, and it feels like the spiral has its own will. Old systems would say your field is being read, skimmed, or hooked. That's the frame. Now this is where the teaching gets very specific. It does not say all metals work. It does not say wear anything shiny and hope for the best. It points to copper. Pure copper, if possible, not plating, not a random alloy pretending to be copper. Copper, the metal linked in old symbolism to Venus, the morning star, the current of attraction, beauty, harmony, and living force. The claim is that copper does not simply block, it distorts. It scrambles, it bends the readable signal. In the symbolic logic of the teaching, That matters more than brute force. Iron is armor. Copper is interference. Iron says, hit this and stop. Copper says, good luck finding me clearly in the first place. That is why this idea stayed alive in whispers. Because even as empires changed and official religions stamped out whole streams of mystical practice, the material itself remained simple, ordinary, cheap, and accessible. If common people believed they could wear a basic metal and become harder to feed on, harder to read, harder to manipulate, the entire structure of dependence on outside authority would start to crack. The teaching says every thought and emotion carries a kind of signal. Again, take that as mystical language or embodied reality, but do not miss the practical truth inside it. Fear changes your breath. Shame changes your posture. Anger changes your pulse. Grief changes your face. Anxiety changes your decisions. Inner state becomes outer signal. You broadcast whether you mean to or not. The fringe claim goes further and says Archons perceive low emotional emissions the way predators detect blood in water. When fear dominates, the field becomes legible. When rage stabilizes into identity, the field becomes easier to lock onto. When despair turns chronic, the field becomes a feeding lane. Copper, according to the teaching, distorts that legibility. You are still there. You are still alive. You are still transmitting. But what reads you from outside no longer gets a clean signal. You begin to look like static. And then comes the part that makes the whole thing feel unnervingly practical. It is not enough to say, wear copper. The old line says, wear it on the side of reception, the left side. Across many spiritual systems, the body is not treated as symmetrical in energetic terms. The right side is linked with output, projection, action. The left side is linked with receiving, sensing, intuition, entry. You see echoes of that in healing traditions, ritual gestures, protective customs, and mystical symbolism all over the place. The old claim is that energy enters more easily through the receptive side, and that hostile forces do not attack randomly from every direction at once. They probe the openings. They test the receptive channels. They look for where the field is thin. In this teaching, 3 points matter most on the left side: the left wrist, the left ankle, and the area over the left side of the chest. The left wrist is treated as the priority point, not because the others don't matter, but because the wrist is seen as a fast access gateway into the personal field. Put plainly, if your life were a house, the left wrist is one of the windows most likely to be checked first. That is why the metaphor in this tradition is not a fortress. It is window film. The Archons are outside, scanning for signs of life they can use. Movement, light, emotional leakage. Copper on the left side is like putting a layer of static over the glass. You can still see out. You can still function. Your inner life does not stop. But from outside, the signal becomes blurred, unclear, not worth the effort. Place your left hand over your chest for a second and feel the heartbeat there. Whether you speak in terms of nerves, magnetics, spiritual field, or emotional resonance, that beat is part of your presence in the world. The old teaching says, if you leave that signal wide open all the time, something will always try to ride it. It gets even sharper when the tradition describes 3 forms of interference. The first is frequency skimming. This is the low, constant drain most people mistake for normal life. You sleep, but you do not recover. You walk through crowds and come home flattened. Certain places feel heavy for no reason you can explain. Certain interactions leave you less yourself. The teaching says this is not dramatic possession. It is mosquito-level extraction. Tiny amounts, again and again, enough to weaken clarity, not enough to get noticed as an attack. Copper on the left wrist is said to interfere with that first, because skimming depends on readable patterns. A smooth signal is easy to skim. A distorted signal is annoying to work with. The second form is attachment. That is more serious. Attachment in this framework happens when a person lives for too long in unresolved fear, recycled shame, or rage that hardens into identity. At that point, the drain becomes more than a passing skim. It starts settling in. People describe it as feeling watched, pressed, crowded inside their own head, like some thoughts arrive with too much force to be fully theirs. The tradition says copper does not magically rip out a deep attachment that is already rooted, but it can prevent fresh locking. It stops new hooks from landing cleanly. That is why the teaching is framed as shield first, then deeper work. The third form is broadcasting. This is the rarest and ugliest part. Broadcasting is when a person becomes so saturated with distortion that they start transmitting it into every room they enter. You know the type, even if you do not use that language. They bring exhaustion with them. They spread misery without speaking much. They leave conflict behind like smoke. Often they do not even know they are doing it. The old claim is that a hostile force can use a person's field like a transmitter. Copper disrupts the stability of that transmission. The signal kicks back. It garbles. It loses coherence. Again, take it literally or symbolically, but the picture is clear. Some people do not only suffer distortion, they spread it. Protection is not just for you. It changes what can move through you into other people. If this is stirring recognition in you, say it in the comments in a real way, not a slogan, just what you've actually seen. Maybe you've been tired for years and no doctor ever gave you language that felt complete. Maybe some rooms crush you. Maybe some people leave you scrambled. Maybe you've felt your own field get darker around certain dynamics and you knew it was more than mood. Name it plainly. Sometimes the first step out of confusion is hearing yourself tell the truth in public. Now here is the usable part. The teaching says you need 3 things: pure copper, the left wrist, and an activation sequence. First, the copper. The closer to pure, the better. A simple copper bracelet or cuff is enough. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. In fact, the quieter it is, the more in line it feels with old protective practice. The point is not display. The point is contact. Second, it goes on the left wrist first, not the right. Not as a necklace, not as an ankle piece, unless you are adding layers later. The left wrist is the priority gate in this system, and yes, direct contact with the skin matters inside the ritual logic. Third, the activation. This is the difference between wearing a metal and using a shield. Passive copper is one thing, directed copper is another. The teaching says, intention locks the pattern. Tonight before sleep, you sit down, get quiet, breathe until your body stops racing ahead of you. Hold the copper in your right hand, place it against your left wrist, close your eyes, then say internally, with full force and no hesitation, I am unseen by what feeds on fear. I am hidden from what harvests light. I walk shielded in the frequency of source. 3 lines, 3 locks. That is how the old style frames it. As you say each one, visualize the copper filling with a soft red glow, not danger red, not panic, living red, grounded red, the color associated in this teaching with Venus and protection. See that light move from the metal into your skin, into the blood, into the cells of the left arm, then widening over the whole left side of the body like a veil of distortion, not a brick wall, a bending field, a shimmer that makes hostile reading harder. Hold it for 30 seconds, then fasten the copper on your left wrist and keep it there through sleep. The teaching says wear it continuously for the first 7 days. After that, short removal is possible, but the pattern is strongest with repeated contact. Now, the sequence of expected effects. First night, vivid dreams are often mentioned in this kind of tradition, sometimes intense, sometimes confrontational. The teaching would say this is residue, reacting, old pressure making one last noisy pass as the distortion field stabilizes. Whether you see that spiritually or psychologically, the pattern makes sense. Boundaries trigger reaction from whatever benefited from their absence. Second day, energy starts returning, not in some fake cinematic surge, more like a steady baseline coming back online. You feel a little more solid, less porous, less scattered. Third day, clarity improves, and synchronicities seem to increase. In the language of the source, manifestation gets cleaner because energy is no longer being siphoned and scrambled. In plain language, when less of you is leaking into chaos, life starts becoming easier to read. By the 7th day, the teaching says the body field begins learning the pattern. The bracelet becomes more than an object. It becomes an anchored signal of intention, repetition, and boundary. But the warning matters just as much as the promise. Shielding is not immunity. Copper does not excuse you from doing your own work. It does not make you invincible. It does not replace emotional responsibility, trauma healing, discernment, prayer, meditation, honesty, rest, or self-control. It gives you room. That is different. It is mosquito netting, not enlightenment. It removes some interference, so you can actually do the deeper work instead of spending your whole life swatting at invisible pressure and calling it your personality. This is why the source frames the so-called chosen ones as specifically targeted, not because they are superior, because anything with a chance of waking up becomes inconvenient to systems that feed on sleep. If someone might get clear, break a pattern, help others get clear, stop leaking fear, stop obeying confusion, then of course they become harder to keep inside the old loop. That is the emotional force underneath the whole teaching. Maybe the exhaustion you've been carrying is not simple weakness. Maybe some of what you called failure was overexposure. Maybe some of what you called instability was saturation. Maybe some of what you called bad luck was just what life feels like when your field is wide open and you were never taught how to filter what enters it. And once that changes, relationships change too. This part is important. People may react strangely when you get clearer. Some pull away, some get irritated. Some feel uneasy around you without knowing why. The teaching says this is not the copper creating social damage. It is exposing which connections were held together by shared distortion, shared fear, shared heaviness, shared low pattern. When you stop matching the old signal, not every bond survives it. That does not automatically make the other person evil, but it does show you what the bond was feeding on. Copper reveals as much as it protects. Here is the deeper, everyday layer, the one that makes this more than a cult theater. Most people are not being broken by one giant event. They are being worn down by accumulation, too much contact, too much noise, too many unresolved people getting direct access to their nervous system, too much digital input before the body is even awake, too much emotional spill from workplaces, family systems, social media, crowded stores, tense homes, endless bad news, and conversations that leave residue for hours. People call themselves weak because they feel overwhelmed, but a lot of what they are feeling is simple overexposure without filters. They are living with no gate, no ritual, no transition, no protective practice. They wake up and immediately let the world into their head. They move through rooms absorbing moods that never belong to them. They carry conversations in the body long after the words are over. They lie down at night, physically tired, but still psychically open, still buzzing, still taking in more. That is why a symbol like copper survives, because even if you strip away the esoteric claims, it expresses a truth people are starving to hear. You do not have to remain fully available to every force around you. You are allowed to filter. You are allowed to reduce access. You are allowed to stop treating sensitivity like a flaw and start treating it like a system that needs intelligent boundaries. In daily life, that can become very concrete. You recover faster after hard interactions. You stop confusing every heavy mood with your identity. You notice which buildings, which people, which habits, which hours of the day make you porous. Your intuition gets cleaner because less static is mixing with it. You realize some of your fatigue was not laziness. It was drag from too much unprocessed contact. Some of your confusion was not stupidity. It was too many signals fighting inside you at once. Some of your sadness was not entirely yours. It was what happens when you have no method for separating self from environment. A shield, whether you read it mystically or psychologically, gives you back the right to tell the difference. And once you can tell the difference, you become harder to control. A tired person is easier to direct. A scattered person is easier to manipulate. A person who doubts every perception is easier to dominate. So when an old teaching says, protect the receptive side, hear the larger message too. Protect your attention. Protect your nervous system. Protect your access points. Protect the doorway where the world becomes your inner life. That is why this kind of practice does not stay abstract for long. It starts showing up in your choices, who you answer, where you linger, what you wear, what you allow, what you stop romanticizing, what you finally admit has been draining you for years. That is where the symbol becomes personal. That is where the so-called shield stops being a story and starts becoming a line in the sand. And then there is the communal side, which the Source pushes hard for a reason. In the old mystical imagination, isolation is one of the main tactics used against people who are trying to wake up, keep them exhausted, keep them doubting themselves, keep them separate, keep them comparing, keep them trapped in private confusion, because people who are shielded and clear are dangerous to any system built on fear. The Source imagines true fellowship, almost like overlapping fields of static, individual protections, creating something stronger together than alone. Not performance, not hierarchy, not brand, resonance, mutual protection. a network of people who are harder to skim, harder to divide, harder to feed on. That image is dramatic, yes, but it lands because people know the opposite too well. They know what it feels like when every mind is isolated and every person is left to think their heaviness is theirs alone. So be honest near the end here. Comment your real reaction. Did this feel symbolic to you? Spiritual, psychological, unsettling, familiar, or uncomfortably accurate? Did something in it hit your chest because you've lived it without language? Say that. Publicly naming what you recognize is one of the cleanest ways to break the spell of private confusion. And subscribe with notifications on if you want to stay near the next transmissions, the ones that keep pressing on the edges of official stories and the places where symbol, psyche, and spirit start blurring into each other. The last thing to leave you with is simple. Whether you see copper as sacred material, ritual anchor, embodied metaphor, or protective tech from a forbidden stream of teaching, the challenge underneath it does not change. Stop walking through life completely unguarded. Stop assuming every weight belongs to you. Stop leaving every window open and then acting surprised when the room gets cold. The old formula is blunt. 1 metal, left wrist, 3 spoken locks, 7 days. Start there if it speaks to you, or take the deeper law behind it and apply it in every form you know how. Because the moment you decide your inner life is worth protecting, something shifts. The signal gets less clean to what was feeding on it. The static rises, the hooks miss. The things that used to find you easily start reaching into noise, and that is the final image, not fantasy, not panic. A person becoming harder to invade, a person reclaiming the doorway, a person no longer broadcasting open access to every force that thrives on confusion. Put the shield where it belongs, in whatever honest form you can carry, and let everything that depended on your openness meet the same answer when it comes looking tonight. Not this time.